I used to work as a travel agent when this young couple came in, thrilled to plan their honeymoon. The woman grinned and said, "We'll spend a week in Los Angeles. On Tuesday, we're doing a little road trip, see the Hollywood sign in the morning, then head over to the Grand Canyon for sunset, and we'll be back for dinner in Beverly Hills." I had to carefully explain that the Grand Canyon is roughly 5 hours away one way and actually in a different state. She frowned and said, half offended, "Well, that's just poor planning on their part. Why wouldn't they build the canyon closer to the big cities?" Our new manager had just transferred from Florida to our Seattle branch. During his very first meeting, he said enthusiastically, "Let's strengthen our connection with the Portland team. I want everyone to drive down for a joint lunch this Friday. Be there by noon." The room went completely silent until someone cautiously raised a hand and said, "Sir, that's a 3-hour drive." He shook his head and said, "Can't be. Portland's just up the coast in Maine, maybe 45 minutes tops." We had to break the news that he was on the opposite side of the country. In my American government class, a student raised his hand during a lecture and asked, completely seriously, if the president works in Washington, D.C., but Congress is in the Capitol building, how do they coordinate? Do they have to fly across the country all the time? The professor paused, realizing the student thought the U.S. Capitol was in Olympia, Washington, and that D.C. was somewhere on the opposite coast. The silence that followed was educational. A friend from Texas came to visit me in Denver. As we drove toward the mountains, he said in awe, "Wow, I didn't realize the Appalachian Mountains were this tall." I corrected him gently. "These are the Rockies." He shook his head confidently. "No way. The East has the Appalachians, the West has the Sierras. We're in the middle, so these must be the Appalachians. The Rockies are out in California." He argued this for 10 full minutes. My cousin from Georgia got a job offer in the tri-state area. He called me in a panic. "I don't think I can afford to live in 3 states," he said. "Do I have to pay taxes to New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut? Will I need 3 driver's licenses?" He genuinely thought he was being hired to work across 3 overlapping states like some sort of multi-state border agent. A coworker once called me for advice about her family vacation. "We're staying in South Dakota to see Mount Rushmore," she said, "but we also want to visit the Statue of Liberty. How many days should we reserve for the bus ride to New York? I'd like to go there and back the same day so we don't need another hotel." I had to show her on a map that the trip would be over 2,000 miles each way. She was genuinely stunned. One of the guys in my college dorm, from Southern California, decided to go skiing in Lake Tahoe for the first time. He called his mom to tell her the plan. I overheard him saying, "Mom, it's fine. I know it's in Nevada, but I don't need a passport. It's still America." Apparently, his mother thought leaving California required international travel documents. Our company's headquarters are in Chicago. A new hire from Arizona told HR he wanted to find an apartment on the coast. HR replied, confused, "You know Chicago isn't near an ocean, right?" He looked offended. "It's on Lake Michigan. There are beaches. How is that not a coast?" He refused to accept that coastlines usually involve saltwater. On a flight to Anchorage, I sat next to a man who looked nervous as we flew over Canada. He leaned over and whispered, "I hope I filled out my customs paperwork correctly." I smiled and said, "You don't need that. Alaska's part of the US. He stared at me and asked, "Are you sure? We're flying over another country to get there. That sounds illegal." A friend from Florida proudly told me that Key West was the southernmost point in the United States. When I mentioned that Hawaii is actually farther south, he immediately got defensive. "Hawaii doesn't count," he said. "That's out in the ocean somewhere. Key West is the southernmost part of real America, the part you can drive to." Apparently, for him, America ended where the highway did. We had an intern from a tiny Kansas town working in our Boston office. On Friday he proudly announced, "I'm gonna walk to the next state over this weekend." We figured he meant Rhode Island, still a pretty ambitious hike. He came back Monday exhausted and confused. "I walked north for 8 hours and didn't even hit the border," he said. "States out here are way too big. Back home you can drive through 3 before dinner." At a local pub quiz, the final question was, what's the only US state capital that can't be reached by road? One team confidently wrote down Honolulu, Hawaii. When the host said the real answer was Juneau, Alaska, they lost it. They argued for 10 minutes. That can't be right. Alaska's attached to Canada. Canada has roads. This is a trick question. They simply couldn't comprehend that a place inside the US could still be inaccessible by car. My aunt in Idaho was helping her son with a report on the Mississippi River. She called me, completely stumped. "I'm looking at this map," she said. "The river goes straight down the middle of the country. So which side is the real United States? The East or the West?" She genuinely thought the Mississippi was an official dividing line, like the border between two separate countries. I met a guy planning a bachelor party in New Orleans. He proudly told me, "We're gonna rent an RV in San Diego and just follow the coastline all the way down." He figured they'd hit beaches in Mexico on the way. I had to explain that New Orleans isn't on the Pacific Ocean. It's on the Gulf of Mexico, and his route would cross an international border and thousands of miles of desert. He blinked and said, "So it's not, like, coastal the whole way?" A coworker complained that a package she ordered was taking forever. "It's been 2 weeks," she said. "It's coming from Puerto Rico." I told her that sometimes shipping from there takes a bit longer. She slammed her desk. "This is ridiculous. We can get stuff from China in 3 days, but not from another country right next door? We should just annex Puerto Rico already so they can use our postal service." I quietly said, "They already do." My friend from New York was job hunting in Austin. He called me excitedly. "I found this super cheap apartment in a place called Waco. Says it's about 100 miles away. That's like a quick commute, right?" I had to tell him that in Texas, 100 miles is still 100 miles. It's not a cute little drive. He was stunned. "So you're saying it actually takes, like, hours? Even though it's the same state?" In astronomy class, the professor explained how light pollution affects stargazing. A student raised her hand. "That's not really a problem here, right? I mean, once you get past the Appalachians, it's just empty until California." She truly believed 2/3 of the United States was just a vast, dark, uninhabited stretch of land with nothing but tumbleweeds. On a sightseeing boat on Lake Superior, a tourist from Arizona nervously asked the guide, "How far are we from the Canadian coast?" The guide said, "About 20 miles north." Her eyes widened. "So, are we in international waters right now? Do we need passports if Canada's Coast Guard stops us?" She genuinely thought a lake had customs checkpoints. Our company moved a guy from San Diego to our Boise, Idaho office. He was thrilled. "I'll spend every weekend in Canada. I'll just pop over whenever I want." We showed him on a map that Boise is in the southern part of the state, a 7-hour drive from the border. He frowned. "That's dumb. If Idaho touches Canada, shouldn't the capital be near it? Poor planning." My college roommate from Connecticut had never been west of Pennsylvania. We were watching a documentary about Yellowstone. When Old Faithful erupted, she gasped. "Wow, that's man-made, right? Like, connected to the Hoover Dam or something?" I told her it was a natural geyser. She squinted at me. "So it just does that on its own? With no government control?"